You know, when we usually think about justice, we picture a courtroom.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, we picture a judge with a wooden gavel, um, a very clear set of laws written down in some heavy leather-bound book, and a scale. A scale that we expect to, balance perfectly and visibly right in front of our eyes.
Right.
Because if someone does something wrong, the gavel falls, the scale tips, and we see the consequence. It is visible, and it's satisfying.
Well, yeah, because we are deeply wired to crave that immediate, visible resolution. I mean, we want the math of human behavior to add up before the end of the business day.
Totally.
Like if someone cuts you off in traffic, you subconsciously want to see them get pulled over a mile down the road.
Oh, 100%.
And when that doesn't happen, the human brain immediately assumes, well, the system is broken.
But what if that scale is so massive, so incredibly vast, that you can't even see the other side of it? So today, we are bringing you a deep dive that asks exactly that question.
Well,
We have a single, highly provocative text on the table today, and it is going to, really challenge everything you think you know about fairness.
it really is.
It's an excerpt from a text called Shui Feng Preaching Tao, Part 6, dated June 3, 2008. And just to be clear right up front for you listening, this text ventures into some profound spiritual, religious, and, political territory.
Highly charged stuff.
Right. And our mission today isn't to endorse these viewpoints, but to impartially unpack a really unique, comprehensive framework of how the universe supposedly operates.
Yeah, and it serves as a fascinating philosophical exercise in shifting human perspective. The entire text centers on a very specific definition of the Tao.
Okay.
In this framework, the Tao isn't just, an abstract poetic concept of nature. It is explicitly defined as the consciousness of the greatest creator. Yeah, it is presented as the driving engine behind the movement and transformation of absolutely everything in the universe. Like, the text refers to it as the lifeblood of the cosmos, the ultimate synthesis of all laws governing reality.
And the author, Zhu Feng, outlines that this Tao has 8 distinct characteristics. He lists things like holographic order, eternal reliability, instantaneous sensitivity, transcendence over time and space, spirituality, immediacy, and it's a mind-bending paradox of being an illusory yet actual existence.
It is a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. And before we move on, I want to pause on just one of those because it sounds like pure science fiction. What does he mean by holographic order in a spiritual context?
So think of a traditional photograph. If you
Sure.
cut a photograph in half, you only have half the image.
Right.
But in a true hologram, if you shatter it into 100 pieces, every single tiny shard still contains the entire complete image of the whole.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the text is suggesting that the rules of the universe are encoded into every microscopic interaction. The macro is perfectly mirrored in the micro.
That is wild.
Right. You don't need to look at the entire galaxy to understand the Tao.
Yeah.
The entirety of cosmic law is perfectly operating within, like, a single drop of rain or a minor argument you have at the grocery store.
That is a staggering way to view reality. But we aren't actually going through all 8 characteristics today. We are focusing completely on characteristic number 6, which is justice.
Yep.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core conflict the author sets up is something every single one of you listening has probably wrestled with at some point. If the universe or the Tao is perfectly just, perfectly fair, and holographically ordered, well, why does everything in our daily lives look so unbelievably, randomly unfair?
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the text doesn't shy away from that glaring contradiction. Before it even attempts to explain the mechanics of universal justice, it forces the reader to stare directly at everyday human suffering.
Which is hard to do.
It really is. It asks some very pointed, almost uncomfortable questions. It acknowledges that if we look at things moment to moment, justice is completely invisible. The author specifically asks, where is the justice when a kind, gentle person who never hurt anyone suddenly dies in a random car crash?
Or when a massive earthquake hits a vulnerable region, killing and maiming thousands of innocent people. It brings up that classic, why do bad things happen to good people dilemma.
Exactly.
And it extends this to our social structures, too. The text asks where the justice is when opportunists like people who explicitly exploit and oppress others live their entire lives in total wealth and luxury, while hardworking, sincere, honest people struggle with hardship and despair from the day they are born until the day they die.
Right. And the author validates those observations, but argues that our fundamental lens is warped. The text insists that human beings are simply looking too closely at the timeline.
We're too zoomed in.
Yes. To actually perceive the justice of the Tao, we have to zoom out to a massive macro perspective. We have to view reality through what it calls the long river of history and the interplay of debts.
Okay, I want to dig into that interplay of debts concept because it implies that the cosmic accounting doesn't reset when you are born or when you die.
Yeah, the text strongly implies a continuous energetic footprint that spans vast expanses of time, maybe across multiple lifetimes or even generational lines. So in this framework, a sudden illness or a tragic accident isn't bad luck.
What has it been?
It is a cosmic bill coming due from a transaction made long ago. The text uses these deeply paradoxical principles to illustrate this macro view. It quotes concepts like misfortune, that upon which happiness depends; happiness, that underneath which misfortune lurks.
That is intense.
It is. Or the idea that if you want to contract something, you must first expand it. If you want to seize something, you must first give to it. The universe breathes in and out over millennia, not minutes.
Okay, but I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening who has actually lived through severe trauma or systemic poverty. Because it is incredibly difficult, maybe even insulting, to tell someone who just lost their home in an earthquake or who can't feed their kids to simply look at the macro perspective and, consider the long river of history.
Oh, absolutely.
It feels a bit like standing 2 inches away from a giant pornalism painting. Those massive museum pieces made of millions of tiny individual dots of paint.
Right, George Seurat, yeah.
Exactly. If human consciousness forces us to stand with our noses touching the canvas, we're just going to see a bunch of chaotic, messy, random dots. We are basically trapped inside one of those dots.
And the author would argue that complaining about the ugliness of that single dot is the ultimate human arrogance. Yeah, the text is essentially demanding that you forcibly detach your ego and step back 50 feet from that painting. It argues that if that macro picture makes perfect, beautiful sense from afar, the mechanism we use to connect those chaotic, painful dots in our daily lives is the strict, unbreakable rule of causality.
Right, cause and effect. But this text takes causality to an absolute, uncompromising extreme.
Oh, there is no middle ground in this framework. The text lays out a concrete, unyielding rule. There is no such thing as a headache without a cause.
Literally a headache.
Literally, it uses that specific mundane example. Absolutely no headache without a reason. Every single illness, every ache, every disaster, every lost wallet has a root. Now, it acknowledges that if we attempt to trace those roots, we might find that some originated recently, like maybe you drank too much wine the night before.
Sure.
But other roots originate from a very, very long time ago, far beyond our current perception.
And this is where the text introduces a really compelling psychological concept, something we could call the forgetting trap.
Yes. Our memories are incredibly fragile. Because humans inevitably forget events from 10 years ago, let alone from previous generations or past energetic states, we lose the thread of our own actions.
So just drop the plot.
Exactly. We can't find the original root of our current suffering. And because our limited brains cannot see the root, we mistakenly conclude that the root doesn't exist. We decide that life is unpredictable. We declare that the universe is just random, cruel coincidence.
And the text absolutely insists this is a delusion. It states, point blank, with incredible certainty, that there is not a single unjustly condemned spirit in hell and not a single unjustly accused person on earth. Period.
As you sow, so shall you reap.
Right. And because of that holographic order we talked about earlier, it says this immense justice applies to the smallest micro-interactions of your day. It says the justice of the Tao is evident in a mother-in-law quarreling with a daughter-in-law.
Right.
Or palace intrigues. Or slipping and falling outside on the ice, or even the changes in the weather and the waxing and waning of the moon. It's all pure causality.
It creates a universe completely devoid of accidents. Every stubbed toe is a perfectly calculated outcome of prior energetic input.
Okay, so the universe is basically a flawless, infinite filing cabinet of cause and effect. But our human brains only have access to the last 3 days of paperwork.
That's a good way to put it.
How are we supposed to live with that? I mean, how do you function in a system where you are facing harsh consequences for paperwork, for actions that you literally cannot remember filing?
Well, it's a terrifying proposition if you are entirely focused on the past. But the text suggests that since we cannot access that infinite filing cabinet, we need to stop trying to audit our past and instead look at the immediate, undeniable evidence of systemic fairness operating all around us right now.
The stuff we can actually see.
The things we can actually verify with our own eyes, yes.
So it points us toward the great equalizers.
Yeah, the author lays out some striking examples of immediate justice to prove the system works, and the ultimate equalizer it points to is the most unavoidable one, which is death. The sheer inevitability of death for absolutely everyone. The text lists it out rhythmically, like the poor die, the wealthy die, the great die, the insignificant die, the powerful die, the powerless die, the beautiful die, the ugly die.
Nobody escapes.
Nobody. The author writes, how fair it is. If some people didn't die, would there be any way out for us?
Framing death as the ultimate escape hatch for fairness is a heavy but incredibly leveling thought. And then it pivots from the morbid to these everyday miracles, framing them as undeniable, physical proof of universal fairness.
Yeah, the basic stuff.
Right. It points out that the sun shines on everyone, regardless of your bank account. The air circulates globally, allowing every living being to breathe freely without being charged a subscription fee.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. It says that regardless of height, weight, wealth, or race, people are given bright eyes to see the world. And that love, the profound joy it brings to the human heart, is an experience accessible to everyone.
It's stripping away human economics and focusing purely on the baseline biological experience. And it takes it a step further by arguing that the universe enforces equality through strict physical limits on human desire.
Right.
The text asserts a controversial point. It says having more actually makes you more troubled, and having less makes you less troubled. It calls this the program designed by Tao.
Right. It points out these hard biological limitations, like no matter who you are or how much power you wield, you can only sleep in one bed at a time.
Very true.
You can only eat a few bowls of rice before your stomach physically rejects more food. Your mental capabilities have hard limits. Every person faces the exact same existential risks of gravity and physics when they get into a car or an airplane.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, and where I think a lot of listeners might raise an eyebrow. Sure, we all only sleep in one bed at night. But a billionaire's bed inside a heavily guarded, climate-controlled penthouse is vastly more comfortable and infinitely safer than a poor person's bed in a war zone or on the street. So I have to wonder, is this text intentionally minimizing real systemic material inequality? Is it just throwing up its hands and saying, hey, we all breathe oxygen, so stop complaining about the wealth gap?
Well, the text would challenge your modern definition of comfort and safety. From the author's perspective, extreme wealth and hoarding actually breed extreme paranoia, isolation, and spiritual decay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The billionaire in the penthouse might be physically secure, but energetically they are suffocating under the weight of maintaining that unnatural imbalance. The text views these physical limits, like your stomach capacity or your fundamental vulnerability in a plane crash, not as a dismissal of human suffering, but as biological proof of an enforced systemic fairness that supersedes our artificial economic layers.
So the baseline design is inherently egalitarian.
Exactly. It's our societal deviations from the Tao that create the illusion of disparity.
So if our biology is strictly capping our physical experience to enforce a baseline equality, where is all this modern misery coming from? Because the text completely pivots here and points the finger directly at human psychology.
Well, it zeroes right in. It blames human envy. Specifically, our pervasive, toxic desire to cherry-pick the absolute best parts of other people's lives while conveniently ignoring the rest of their reality.
This part of the text is incredibly aggressive.
Oh yeah, it holds nothing back.
It pulls no punches at all. It breaks down these very specific, relatable examples of envy. It says people complain that the universe is unfair if they don't have a diamond necklace. Or they complain it's unfair if they aren't naturally 6 feet tall.
Which, people do.
All the time. Or they feel cheated because they don't live in a sprawling mansion. It even specifically references Hu Jintao, the former president of China. It says people look at him and say, I want to be president, otherwise the universe is unfair.
And using Hu Jintao is a brilliant rhetorical device. By inserting a highly specific contemporary political figure into a text that reads like an ancient Taoist manuscript, the author forcibly grounds this philosophy in the 21st century.
It makes it very real.
Yeah, it tells the reader, look, I am not talking about mythical emperors from 1,000 years ago. I am talking about the power structures you are staring at right now on the evening news. And this leads directly to what we might call the author's brutal counteroffer.
The counterargument to this envy is shocking. It says, all right, if you demand the good things that others have, you must fully accept their horrors as well. It is a non-negotiable package deal.
And this is where we see the metaphysical law of energy transfer in this framework.
Right.
In a zero-sum universe, energy cannot simply be created out of thin air.
Right.
Therefore, extreme positive fortune in one specific area of a person's life must mathematically be balanced by extreme negative friction in another. You cannot just extract the wealth without extracting the suffering that balances it.
And the examples it uses to illustrate this are visceral. It says if you want that person's mansion, then when they suffer, you must also suffer. If they break their leg, you must break your leg.
Yes.
If they're burned to death in a fire, you must burn yourself to death.
It goes as far as to say if they contract AIDS, you must inject yourself with the AIDS virus. This is intense. It's like demanding to eat a stranger's delicious, beautiful dessert, but flat out refusing to swallow the poison pill they were required to take right alongside it.
It leaves absolutely zero room for victimhood. You cannot claim you were cheated by the universe because you don't have the mansion, because you are utterly unwilling to pay the invisible, energetic price the mansion owner is paying.
Wow.
Yeah, it demands radical, terrifying accountability. You must recognize the entirety of someone else's karmic ledger, not just the positive balances you happen to covet in this exact moment. So if we manage to drop our envy, and if we accept this macro-level causality where we can't see the roots of our headaches, what does the final cosmic accounting actually look like? When the river of history finally reaches the ocean, where is this all heading?
Well, the text explains that the ultimate balance sheet of the universe is exact and flawless. The sum of positive and negative energy in the universe is exactly zero.
Zero.
The universe's accounts are always perfectly balanced, which means that every single individual's personal accounts will eventually, inevitably, balance to zero as well.
And it gets very specific about how that balance is enforced after we die. It outlines explicit criteria for heaven and hell.
Right. In this framework, heaven is established specifically to reward those who revere the greatest creator and who revere life and nature. Hell is set up to punish those who are arrogant and reckless, who actively harm living beings. But what is striking is how specific the author gets about the mechanics of damnation.
Yeah, this part caught me off guard.
Hell specifically targets those who engage in environmental destruction, punishing those who pollute rivers, lakes, seas, skies, and the earth.
I found that utterly fascinating. Why is pollution a damnable offense in this framework? Because if the Tao is the lifeblood of the universe, then harming the earth is a direct physical assault on the consciousness of the greatest creator. It's a very modern ecological anxiety embedded right next to ancient spiritual concepts.
Definitely.
And it also explicitly states that hell punishes people who speak nonsense about mysterious and spooky things.
Yeah, that is a direct attack on spiritual fraud. The text views manipulating people's fear of the unknown, using ghosts, curses, or spooky superstitions to extract money or power from them as a severe disruption of the cosmic order.
Because it's basically theft.
Exactly. It's a theft of peace, and that debt must be repaid. If we connect this to the bigger picture, visualizing the universe as a massive waterbed perfectly illustrates this zero-sum game. If you push down hard on one side of a waterbed to hoard wealth or power, you inevitably force the water to bulge upwards somewhere else, creating suffering or creating a massive karmic debt that you now owe.
So what does this all mean? It means the universe is a flawless accounting ledger where the math always equals zero at the bottom line. Any theft you commit, whether it's stealing money, stealing joy, polluting a river, or exploiting someone's fear, isn't actually a gain.
No, not at all.
You haven't won anything. It is just a cosmic loan, and you'll eventually have to pay it back, likely across multiple lifetimes, with a massive amount of interest.
And understanding that mechanism fundamentally shifts human motivation. The text argues that realizing every account balances to zero makes hoarding completely pointless. It makes us clear-sighted. We become more willing to give and much less eager to take. Because the more you give, the less you seek, and the greater the ultimate energetic reward will be when your ledger is finally balanced.
So as we wrap up this journey through Huifeng's text, the core message for you listening is deeply rooted in that ancient proverb, as you sow, so shall you reap. The author is pleading with the reader, do not limit your perspective to the gains and losses of yesterday and today.
Don't get stuck in the micro.
Don't even limit it to the span of this present life. You have to look to the deep future. The text promises that by doing this, by holding firmly to that macro perspective, no matter how wild or tumultuous the waves of your current life get, you can steady yourself. You can steer your ship away from the chaos and navigate toward the ideal harbor you dream of.
It offers a profoundly empowering, albeit highly demanding, way to navigate a chaotic world. By taking absolute uncompromising ownership of your personal causal chain, you completely remove the crippling anxiety of randomness from your life.
It really does reframe everything. But as we leave you today, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about your day. Something the text implies, but doesn't explicitly ask.
Okay.
If the universe truly is this perfect, zero-sum ledger that spans across lifetimes, and every single action is guaranteed to be perfectly balanced and repaid, well, how does that change the way you view a completely anonymous, unrewarded act of kindness you could perform today?
That's a great question.
Right. If the universe absolutely guarantees that you will eventually be paid back for every good deed, does true selfless altruism even exist? Or are we all, always, just making deposits in a cosmic bank account? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning that scale, and we'll see you next time.